What exactly is happiness? We all want it, we all crave it, we all strive for it. Even the Dalai Lama has said the very purpose of life is to seek happiness. But what exactly is it? The word happiness has two very different meanings. The common meaning of the word is feeling good. In other words, feeling a sense of pleasure, gladness, or gratification. We all enjoy these feelings, so it's no surprise that we chase them. However, like all human emotions, feelings of happiness don't last. No matter how hard we try to hold on to them, they slip away every time. And, as we shall see, a life spent in pursuit of those good feelings is, in the long term, deeply unsatisfying. In fact, the harder we chase after pleasurable feelings, the more we are likely to suffer from anxiety and depression. The other far less common meaning of happiness is living a rich, full, and meaningful life. When we take action on the things that truly matter deep in our hearts, move in directions that we consider valuable and worthy, clarifying what we stand for in life, and act accordingly, then our lives become rich and full and meaningful. And we experience a powerful sense of vitality. This is not some fleeting feeling, it is a profound sense of a life well lived. And although such a life will undoubtedly give us many pleasurable feelings, it will also give us uncomfortable ones, such as sadness, fear, and anger. This is only to be expected. If we live a full life, we will feel the full range of human emotions. In this book, as you've probably guessed by now, we are far more interested in this second meaning of happiness than in the first. Of course, we all enjoy feeling good, and we should certainly make the most of pleasant feelings when they appear. But if we try to have them all the time, we are doomed to failure. The reality is, life involves pain. There is no getting away from it. As human beings, we are all faced with the fact that sooner or later we will grow infirm, get sick, and die. Sooner or later, we all will lose valued relationships through rejection, separation, or death. Sooner or later, we will all come face to face with crisis, disappointment, and failure. This means that in one form or another, we all going to experience painful thoughts and feelings. The good news is that although we can't avoid such pain, we can learn to handle it much better, to make room for it, reduce its impact, and create a life worth living despite it. This book will show you how to do it. There are 3 parts to this process. In part 1, you will learn how to create and get stuck in the happiness trap. This is an essential first step, so please don't skip it. You can't escape the trap if you don't know how it works. In part 2, rather than trying to avoid or eliminate painful thoughts and feelings, you will learn how to make room for them and experience them in a new way that will reduce their impact, drain away their power, and dramatically decrease their influence over your life. Finally, in part 3, instead of chasing happy thoughts and feelings, you will focus on creating a rich and meaningful life. This will give rise to a sense of vitality and fulfillment that is both deeply satisfying and long-lasting. The journey ahead. This book is like a trip through a foreign country. Much will seem strange and new. Other things will seem familiar, yet somehow subtly different. At times you may feel challenged or confronted. At other times excited or amused. Take your time on this journey. Instead of rushing ahead, savor it fully. Stop when you find something stimulating or unusual. Explore it in depth and learn as much as you can. To create a life worth living is a major undertaking, so please take the time to appreciate it. Part 1. How you set the happiness trap. Chapter 1. Fairy tales. What's the last line of every fairy tale? You got it. and they lived happily ever after. And it's not just fairy tales that have happy endings. How about Hollywood movies? Don't they nearly always have some sort of feel-good ending where good triumphs over evil, love conquers all, and the hero defeats the bad guy? And doesn't the same hold true for most popular novels and television programs? We love happy endings because society tells us that's how life should be. All joy and fun and peace and contentment living happily ever after. But does that sound realistic? Does it fit in with your experience of life? This is one of 4 major myths that make up the basic blueprint for the happiness trap. Let's take a look at these myths one by one. Myth 1. Happiness is the natural state for all human beings. Our culture insists that humans are naturally happy, but the statistics quoted in the introduction clearly disprove this. Remember, 1 in 10 adults will attempt suicide, and 1 in 5 will suffer from depression. What's more, the statistical probability that you will suffer from a psychiatric disorder at some stage in your life is almost 30%. And when you add in all the misery caused by problems that are not classified as a psychiatric disorder, loneliness, divorce, work stress, midlife crisis, relationship issues, social isolation, prejudice, and lack of meaning or purpose, you start to get some idea of how just rare true happiness really is. Unfortunately, many people walk around with the belief that everyone else is happy except them. And you guessed it, this belief creates even more unhappiness. Myth 2. If you're not happy, you're defective. Following logically from myth 1, Western society assumes that mental suffering is abnormal. It is seen as a weakness or illness, a product of a mind that is somehow faulty or defective. This means that when we do inevitably experience painful thoughts and feelings, we often criticize ourselves for being weak or stupid. Acceptance and commitment therapy is based on a dramatically different assumption. The normal thinking process of a healthy human mind will naturally lead to psychological suffering. You're not defective, your mind's just doing what it evolved to do. Fortunately, ACT will teach you how to handle your mind more effectively in ways which can dramatically improve your life. Myth 3. To create a better life, we must get rid of negative feelings. We live in a good society, a culture fully obsessed with finding happiness. And what does that society tell us to do? To eliminate negative feelings and accumulate positive ones in their place. It's a nice theory, and on the surface it seems to make sense. After all, who wants to have unpleasant feelings? But here's the catch. The things we generally value most in life bring with them a whole range of feelings, both pleasant and unpleasant. For example, in an intimate long-term relationship, although you will experience wonderful feelings such as love and joy, you will also inevitably experience disappointment and frustration. There is no such thing as the perfect partner, and sooner or later, conflicts of interest will arise. The same holds true for just about every meaningful project we embark on. Although they often bring feelings of excitement and enthusiasm, they also generally bring stress, fear, and anxiety. So if you believe myth 3, you're in big trouble, because it's pretty well possible to create a better life if you're not prepared to have some uncomfortable feelings. However, in part 2 of this book, you will learn how to handle such feelings altogether differently, to experience them in such a way that they have much less impact on you. Myth 4. You should be able to control what you think and feel. The fact is, we have much less control over the thoughts and feelings that we would like. It's not that we have no control, it's just that we have much less than the experts would have us believe. However, we do have a huge amount of control over our actions, and it's through taking action that we create a rich, full, and meaningful life. The overwhelming majority of self-help programs subscribe to Myth 4. Their basic claim is, if you challenge your negative thoughts or images and instead repeatedly fill your head with positive thoughts and images, you will find happiness. If only life were that simple. I'm willing to bet that you've already tried countless times to think more positively about things, and yet those negative thoughts kept coming back, don't they? As we saw in the introduction, our minds have evolved over 100,000 years to think the way they do, so it's not likely that a few positive thoughts will change them much. It's not that these techniques have no effect. They can often make you feel better temporarily, but they will not get rid of negative thoughts over the long term. The same holds true for negative feelings such as anger, fear, sadness, insecurity, and guilt. There are a multitude of psychological strategies to get rid of such feelings, but you've undoubtedly discovered that even if they go away, after a while they're back, and then they go away again, and then they come back again, and so on and so on and so on. The likelihood is, if you're like most of the other humans on the planet, you've already spent a lot of time and effort trying to have good feelings instead of the bad ones. And you've probably found that as long as you're not too distressed, you can, to some degree, pull it off. But you've probably also discovered that as your level of distress increases, your ability to control your feelings progressively lessens. Sadly, Myth 4 is so widely believed that we tend to feel inadequate when our attempts to control our thoughts and feelings fail. These 4 powerful myths provide the basic blueprint for the happiness trap. They set us up for a struggle we can never win, the struggle against our own human nature. It is this struggle that builds the trap. In the next chapter, we will look at this struggle in detail. But first, let's consider why these myths are so entrenched in our culture.